I think I'm the only player in the NRL to be suspended after their first and second game. I had carryover points going into my debut. It was round 19, Dragons at Jubilee, Channel 9, Sunday afternoon footy. Like, it doesn't get any better. I think Mark Riddell was on the ground. I sort of fell across his head a little bit with my forearm, and they were sort of clamping down on that in the game. Like, he got up smiling, no one was hurt.
Yeah.
So I copped a week for that. And then, of all things, my second one was a high shot in Adrian Morley. Now, I didn't know you could get suspended for having a high shot in Adrian Morley. I thought he was. I thought he was open slather. Like, of all blokes that put a high shot on, he's done 1,000 in his life. So,
if you've been an NRL fan for a while, you'd be familiar with the name Ben Cross. He was part of the Melbourne Storm teams in 2006, 2007 that had so much success. He went on to represent New South Wales. What you might not know is that he didn't get graded till he was 24. So he learned so many valuable lessons around footy, but also life and the importance of having a clear focus on what it is you're wanting to achieve. There's also some great information there that he shares around how important it is to continue getting better at getting better, whether that's in your sport or in your personal life. Enjoy. I'm Ian Hawkins, and this is Sport is Life. The purpose of sport, as I see it, is to see your vision become a reality. Find your voice, create strong connections, and learn to trust your body. G'day, Ben. How you going?
good, mate. How are you? Morning.
Really good. Always good to have on people who have played at the highest level, because I know that the knowledge and the wisdom that you pass on will be something that'll be things that other people can aspire to. So it's really good. I appreciate you investing this time and energy into this. Thank you, mate.
My pleasure.
So I remember probably more your Melbourne and Newcastle days, but take us back. Like, you grew up in Wagga, right?
Born in Wagga, moved when I was about 10 to a beautiful place called Batemans Bay on the far south coast of New South Wales. And then I call my hometown where I grew up, where I was forged, where I started playing rugby league and cricket and sort of just grew up into the man I am today.
Yeah, and you're always into your footy?
No. My dad played locally in Wagga and stuff around the country, New South Wales, but he retired early because there was myself came along and work got in the way. But man, I didn't play rugby league properly until I was in year 7 when I started in high school. Soccer, Mum wanted to keep us out of rugby league for a little bit, and I was fairly heavily involved in cricket. I love my cricket, so it wasn't until about year 7 went to high school and one team town. There's only one high school. They go, come on, you got to start playing league. So jumped on board, and the rest is history, they say.
Yeah. Great part of the world. We used to holiday down there at Batemans Bay every year. Absolutely magic. Yeah. I imagine you, given your size, you would have outgrown football anyway, like soccer, and you're better suited. Were you a big fella from a young age?
A little bit. Solid, I would say. Then had a bit of a growth spurt through year 9. I actually didn't play rugby league in year 9. I focused on cricket. Was following the cricket path. I was meant to play for Australia, New South Wales, and do all that sort of stuff. And then you get a little bit bigger, faster, and stronger for league, and so sort of your direction changed. And rugby league's over in 90 minutes. You have a few beers, where cricket's a long day out in the sun, where you'd rather be surfing and doing some other stuff in your off season. So sort of rugby league took over.
Yeah, right. So you're pretty handy cricketer, batter, bowler.
Yeah, bowler, a little bit of a batsman, but more of a bowler.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So how do you go from playing at Batemans Bay to getting graded?
It was a long road. It really was. I probably played about 7 years of A grade rugby league before I even got a look in. 97, going back 97 there, Brad Arth was my first grade coach. He came down from Penrith as a captain coach, and in that tide was myself, Brad Arthur, and Adam O'Brien, Newcastle coach, which we're good mates. We grew up together. And our first grade side the year before virtually all left. So it was our under 18s team, which I was included. We progressed up to become our first grade side, and we lost nearly every game we played. Or we did lose every game we played. And then we got a little bit better and had a look in with Illawarra Steelers in 98, but then unfortunately they merged with the Dragons, so sort of that window started to close on me as well. So, and I just kept on playing football in Batemans Bay and moved up to Canberra and played the Queanbeyan Blues in 2000 and 2001 and had a season over in France, and then came back for again 2002 at Queanbeyan Blues, and that was going to be my life, just go back and forth between the Canberra comp and France. And then they Canberra Raiders invited me to an open trial at the end of the 2002 season. We won the comp with Queanbeyan Blues, and I was one of about 70 players that were picked up, and I thought, well, this is my opportunity. Did the pre-season with the New South Wales Cup side and made the cut, made the 17, made the starting team, and then before I know it, I was making my NRL debut about 4 months later.
Oh, how good. Do you remember the trial? Were you nervous?
The trial, the open trial.
Yeah.
It was it was good. It was the 70 other guys locally. The good thing about it is that the dummy half in my team was my club dummy half, so there's always a bit of a wink and nod, and you always got the ball a lot. But I remember now, it was just a free-for-all. Everyone was obviously putting their best foot forward to play, and a lot of the guys were playing over in New Zealand, came over locally in Canberra, all the guys that were invited to come along. And honestly, they're probably only looking for one or two players to fill their books, and luckily enough, I was one.
Do you remember coming off feeling like you'd really given yourself a good crack at it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think we played about 3 full games, and I just almost refused to go off the field because, look, if you're not on the field, you're not getting looked at. So I was pretty spent by the end of the day. But I was fairly confident in my ability on the day that I showcased myself really well and had some good, strong tackles and good runs, and set up a couple of tries, which was good. So I knew I'd played well in it, and I knew I had a good season the year before with Queanbeyan Blues and would won the comp, and I'd shown enough throughout that season. Yeah.
So they already knew who you were, so that would be helpful.
Yeah. Playing that Canberra competition, I got Michael Maguire, the new Broncos coach. I've been friends with him a long time. He coached me at Canberra Raiders. He was actually out scouting, having a look at me, so he knew me within the competition there. And Matt Elliott saw me a couple of times play locally as well. So, it wasn't just by chance. They obviously had a look around the competition, and that was a good thing about playing in Canberra and being a one-team town. They've got the utilisation of a real strong competition where they can draw from, and players that are really invested in the Canberra jersey.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's what they've been trying to replicate since they had that success in the 90s, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that success in the 90s comes off the back of all the Queenslanders they recruited. So there was a bit of a mix of, they got a lot of Queenslanders down because at the time around that, before the Broncos came in, there wasn't an opportunity for those guys to play at that ARL level back then. Plus they had a good contingent of country New South Wales kids, Canberra kids coming through, Ricky Stewart, Laurie Dale, that were all local to the area. So it was a good little melting pot to bring that in. I don't know whether they're as heavily as invested in their local catchment areas now as what they previously were. I would imagine so. They probably are with Ricky, and trying to get that buy-in from those local guys, which I just hope that is the case, because they've got a good nursery down there where people that are attached to, like, coming from Wagga, Griffith, all that central west New South Wales area, it's the closest place to go to for an NRL club, and it's nice and close and local for their families as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, so what age were you then when you got graded?
I was 24.
24. So do you remember, like, at that point, because you'd been playing A grade all that time, that you already had your sort of game day preparation in order? Were there certain things that you knew you had to do to make sure that you were going to be at your best? Yeah,
there was. I was fairly diligent on my game before I even became a professional. Brad Arthur really helped with that in '97. We just a bit more attention to detail in our training, and it was always always a compulsive trainer. And then I started taking it to the nth degree. And then virtually there was one period of time there where I played virtually 4 footy seasons in a row, back to back, going from Queanbeyan Blues to France, back to Queanbeyan Blues, and then rolled straight into the Canberra Raiders pre-season. So there's just no break. How I played my football across those early years as well probably put a big toll on me as well. That probably probably didn't get as many NRL games as I would like, but that's just to say probably come down to injuries as well. But I played a lot of games of football before playing the NRL as well. So no matter what level it is, it still puts a toll on your body. There was just that changing and refocus onto things that were better suited to your training once you got to the NRL that you knew about. And I just always knew that you had to work hard, so I worked hard. I purposely used to live 5Ks within training, Canberra and Melbourne, so I could run to training and run home, or ride to training and run home. Because I said this a few times, and I always felt like debuting at 24, I was always catching up to everyone else. They already had so many years of NRL or NRL program training into them. I knew that one of my strengths was my fitness and my conditioning and hard work ethic, so I had to make sure that I was always on top of that. So, it probably wasn't the smartest thing to do sometimes, to run to training or run home after training, because you've got to get up and do it again the next day, but it worked for a while.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I'm fascinated in is, like, mentally at 24, you're so much better than you would have been as a youngster. So you're ahead of the curve in that sense. So I'd love to hear, like, tap into some of that. Like, I imagine playing back-to-back seasons, physically fatigued, but mentally you would have been fatigued too. So you must have actually developed some really key strategies to get yourself up mentally to push through.
Gratitude was the biggest one. So I think it was the song Eminem, You Only Got One Shot. That song came out at the end of 2002, so that song was big. And I virtually played that song every drive from Queanbeyan to the Canberra Raiders training centre. After work, I was scaffolding at the time. After work, trying to make my way into the New South Wales Cup song, played that song consistently, going to training, because I knew this was my only one shot to sort of crack the NRL. And being 24, not having come through junior rep programs and stuff like that, I was really appreciative of this opportunity I had. Again, I only had one opportunity, so I had to take out of it. And playing over in France as well, the opportunity to do that, and being really grateful for that opportunity, going, okay, this is what amateur rugby league can afford me the opportunity. I wonder what professional opportunity I can get if I really put my head down. So once I got to that NRL sort of position, or at least New South Wales Cup initially, I knew where I could have been, but I knew where I wanted to go. So I just had a plan and a process in place that's, as I said before, like, make the cut for the open trial, then make the original squad, make the 17 to the starting team, and then come round one, the New South Wales Cup, I was the starting prop. And then within a couple of weeks, I think I'd only played about 3 games, and I was about 18th man for the NRL team. Nearly made my debut against the Bulldogs at Canberra, but someone else got fit, and then it wasn't until about round 19 or 17 that I actually debuted. So, but I just knew I had a plan and process in place, and add in a lot of hard work and determination.
So good. Can I just fast forward you to now, your role as a coach? Those things that you talked about, the plan, the process, you knew where you wanted to go, you knew what you want to do. How much time do you spend on that mental side of it for the young men and women in your under your coaching?
I like to try to implement a lot of that knowledge under them, and talk about it within my coaching, that it's a process and systems that you've got to follow a fairly sequential path at times, like, especially within a game, just how the game unfolds as well, like them thinking about, I just want to make my carries, I just want to make my tackles. Well, there's a process to that as well, that how that contributes to the overall team's performance. You need to do it, and your teammate needs to do it, and we all achieve collectively together. So that's sort of something that I always try to pass on my players. Like, coaching up here, we have a lot of players get opportunities for pre-seasons with NRL teams, or then pre-season with Host Plus Cup clubs. And I sort of tell them they're already not getting what they want. And that, as this sounds, they're already not there.
Yeah.
But when they go to those opportunities, they just give it your all. Just do not hold back. Like, don't feel like you're going to embarrass someone by running faster than them, or tackling them stronger than what they're probably expected at training, because the coaches there already don't have you on contract. Essentially, what you're trying to do is prove them that you're worth the contract, or you want to take someone else's contract. Then once you're in the team, you make the squad, you're all sort of rowing in the same boat to the right direction. But when you're still waiting for that opportunity, you haven't got it yet, you've got to take it with both hands. So that's sort of something I try to really reiterate with my players as well, that yes, it's a team sport, but you get recognised and rewarded for your individual efforts, especially when you're looking for that opportunity initially. And then's what you do with those skills and those attributes you have within a team dynamics, so we can all achieve something as well later on down the track. But initially, sometimes you've got to be a little bit selfish to progress your own career. And that's, well, we talk about being humble and stuff like that, which that's terrific, but it can also be really counterintuitive for you. If you're being that humble and not sort of getting out of your shell, you're not going to grow either. So if you're not going to grow, you're not going to get better. Then you can't showcase your best attributes.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess the reality is in any team environment that every individual's got to be putting in their best to make the collective best. I mean, I'm sure some of the absolute stars that you played with were very much coming from that selfish perspective as how can I be my absolute best. I'm curious about what you said there around, you said, like, don't be embarrassed to outperform. Do you think that's a generational thing, that some of these kids don't want to stand out too much? That
Yeah, a little bit.
Jokes and past that?
There's always that little bit of tall poppy syndrome in the Australian culture, and with the Polynesian culture, it's a little bit like be humble about it. I know how humble they are as a culture of people, but still to be rewarded, it's on your attributes and what you can do on the field as well. So there's that really fine line. Humble arrogancy, I sort of call it, where you've got to be really arrogant about your own ability and your own strengths, because essentially that's what you're going to be judged on. But that doesn't mean you can't be humble in your approach to it, where I'm trying to be my best. I'm not always trying to be better than you, but I'm trying to be better than I was yesterday, or be as good as I can be. And if that so happened to be better than the other front rower or the other player in the team because the coach wants to select the best player, well, then so be it. Because essentially when you go those higher levels, that's what we're looking for. We're not giving out trophies for participation. It's we're all clambering over the same amount of contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that something you think that you had to develop later through your career, or was that forged in those?
It was forged in those years. Like coming through, I didn't know the resilience and the tenacity that it ingrained in me. Just being a 18-year-old kid playing A grade and losing every game in 1997, what that did for me further down the track. So I just had always a competitive nature, streak, this tough resilience to it, and you'll learn as much as you do from losses as you do a win. But when things are harder, you seem to sort of really know whether you really want to do it for the right reasons. When things are easy, well then you can hang around and do it fairly easy and just ride off the coattails of others. But when things are tough, do you really want to hang in there? And that's what probably that sort of taught me, because then in 98, when we got a little bit better and I was getting selected for rep teams, that hard work was starting to pay off, and then progressed to sort of success I had. Batemans Bay, we had a couple of grand finals, Queen Blues, a couple of grand finals, Canberra Raiders reserve grade grand finals, Melbourne Storm grand finals. You go, okay, that's that probably all that was taught from as well.
Yeah. So good. You mentioned there for the right reasons. How do you get your players to have that level of resilience? Are there some things that you've learned along the way that you instill in them that helps them? Because that can be one of the biggest challenges, is for them to learn that resilience if they haven't gone through those hard years that you did. So what are some of those key points that the listeners can take out of this for their own development?
When I was working when I was working with the New South Wales women's Origin team for 3 years, they probably struggled with that a little bit. New South Wales had never won an Origin series ever for 19 years, and they probably always faltered in the game because they weren't resilient enough from what I saw the previous games. And then I started to try to turn it around to attributes and examples they had in their real life of resilience. So some of them were actually mothers. So some of them actually they all worked full-time and juggled part-time training, training 3 or 4 nights a week at 6 o'clock, going to New South Wales training on a Sunday when that was their only day off. That in itself is resilience. They probably didn't really realise it, that just pursuing that ambition to play for New South Wales and putting all those little things in place for you personally being there as a good mother and a good wife while going to work and then getting yourself going to training, they're resilient things that they're displaying as well. So once they started to probably realise that in their own world, in their own life, they say, okay, how do we attribute that to a game of football? So when we are defending our try line, just draw off those resilient strengths that you have within you. And that's probably things that I sort of try to relate to my current players that aren't professional as well, that there's things that you do. Yeah, you might work 8 hours a day as a labourer, then you come into training and training's hard. But while you're in your early 20s, you're pretty flexible and nimble and recover pretty quickly. And this is the level of football you want to play at. That's the entry ticket. So you can draw from that as well. Like, yeah, I do work hard all day as a brickies labourer or something like that. And, you know, I'm going to put in just as hard on the training field because come Saturday or Sunday, I want to display my best attributes as a rugby league player. If you're doing that, well, then you're going to enjoy it better. And then there's more opportunities to progress to higher footy. Yeah.
So good. I love the how you reference the transferable skills, because to me that's an underutilized skill across the board, whether it's people taking stuff from that works for work across to their personal or to sport and vice versa. So that's awesome, mate. I love that. I wonder how much of that resilience that you learnt through those years of working and playing has really been a massive part of your journey. We used to joke when we were playing decent level soccer that these professional players are concerned that they're tired. Like, try working a full week of work, plus training, plus playing, and the joke was always plus drinking 40 skinners on the weekend and tell us you're tired then, you know what I mean? So, but you learn a lot about the ability just to keep ploughing on, right?
Yeah, well, even in the early 2000s when I started, I was back on the construction site 2 days later after my second NRL game.
Yeah, wow.
So it's not like it's evolved quickly, the game. It really has. But again, that was only 20-something years ago. Oh, God, let me say that. 20 years ago. But it's still not that long ago either. Probably unheard of these days, guys going straight from Queensland Cup and New South Wales Cup, part-timers playing NRL, and then going back to the job site on the Monday or Tuesday. But that was just what you had to do. So he goes, all right. So the alternative was not keep on trying to get better to make rugby league my full-time job, or just to be satisfied with what I had, a couple of NRL games, and I'm just going to keep on working. Well, I thought, well, you're only going to be this opportunity once, and you've only got a short period of window to do it. So you might as well throw all your eggs in the one basket for an NRL career, because at this stage you already don't have one. So you might as well try to pursue one, and then whenever it ends, it'll end. And if you just keep on working hard, well, then we keep on progressing.
Yeah, I love that. I was hearing a sports person interviewed this week. I can't remember who it was, and they were talking about that. They're like if you hedge your bets and you're thinking, I'll do this or this or this, you're not fully committed to it. I'd be interested to hear your take, given they're putting a fair bit of time and effort into helping players with career after football. Do you think they've got that balance right? So they're not actually taking away from their actual main role?
I've actually just gone through the Elite Athlete Wellbeing Cert 4 course, and we talk a lot about in that. And even within my own career, I was still pursuing something outside while I was playing. And studies have done that a lot of the players that play the highest level rugby league are doing some sort of study or preparation for career after footy. So they're either at university or they're doing TAFE courses. Essentially, we try to call it 2 plan A's. We've only got a period of window to play rugby league or a professional sport for so long or so short a period of time. And then you're still you as a human being for a long time after your sporting career is going to finish. So that tying up of identity of I'm a rugby league player is really fraught with depression and psychological issues down the track, where if we are pursuing 2 plan A's, yes, while you're in the game, that's your main priority, but it's a good distraction as well, like going away and studying something else that's really interesting. I'd try to get all my players to do some sort of coaching qualifications while they're playing, and even probably do some coaching to younger kids, because it actually makes you a really better player.
Yeah,
learning
definitely.
how to teach other people how to play the game as well that you're playing, and probably give them a bit more appreciation for the head coach, because you know what, that is pretty hard to implement and tell a 6-year-old or teach a 6-year-old how to tackle, how to pass properly. Someone hasn't probably done it ever before. So I think it's a really healthy thing to pursue something outside of your main career. And look, your focus is always, your main thing is always going to be your main thing. But knowing full well you're only one good injury away from getting retired as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned their identity. Is that something you would have learned? Like, I imagine, like, not growing up in the country, but you know, people talk about that country upbringing. It's more sort of traditional values of hard work and doing the right thing and so on. Is there an element of, okay, you want to play footy, but that's not who you are, and but you still got to get on with the rest of your life, sort of thing? Do you think that sort of identity is you, just who you are, rather than the footballer was probably already there for you?
I'd like to hope it's improved. I don't think there was a real focus on it when I was coming through. There's like the well-being stuff. There was a career and well-being manager, but like it was really about how you're going, what sort of stuff you're going to do after footy. But it was nothing as prevalent of what it is today and the focus of it. You still see kids all the time. They might have had to retire early due to injury, and they go, "Well, who am I now? If I'm not a footy player, I don't have any other skills. What am I doing?" And that, even guys that I played with, I know the struggle with that. That with it could be 5, 10, 15 years, they still don't know sort of what they want to pursue or who they have become post-footy career. Probably there was a little bit of that when I first retired, only because I sort of went back to scaffolding a little bit in Newcastle and went straight back into personal training, which I was pursuing a career previously for, and did my qualifications and that, and then sort of started to realise get into rugby league coaching, which was fine, and that was something I always wanted to pursue while I was playing. So I put myself through all the courses and was always a student of the game. Didn't really probably tie myself as that identity as a rugby league player, probably because I'd worked a lot before I actually started playing professionally. So those kids that are fairly institutionalised, where they're going through school, they're going through high achieving, high intensity school rugby league programs, then they go straight into the Jersey Flag or SG Ball sort of programs and progress in the New South Wales Cup. They've never been outside into the real world. That's where, like, examples like Melbourne Storm are good. They get those kids that Craig knows have never been in that real world environment. They go down and work for 2 weeks and then train in the evening, because that's the alternative if you weren't a professional rugby league player to try to pursue a rugby league career. You want to go down that route, or are you pretty grateful with what you got when you can get up and go to training every day and not have to work?
Love it. Obviously working too, so he's got some good systems in place. Obviously, I might ask you some questions about some of those coaches you worked under as we get towards the end, but I want to tap into something you mentioned again then, which is gratitude. You mentioned that it was such a powerful thing for you when you were making that journey from essentially part-time footballer to professional. How did you implement that in your day-to-day? Like you mentioned, listening to the music to pump you up, but what other sorts of things did you put in place to really focus on that gratitude?
Probably, again, going back to having that working career before becoming a professional, I knew what the alternative was.
Yeah.
Where, there was days where it was always hard to get up to training, but I always knew what the alternative was. Where would you rather be? And it was always a conscious, not a subconscious thought, but a conscious thought, either into the car or while I was at training, that it's a real privilege to be here. It's something that I always really enjoyed. I just love rugby league and just love playing it and love training hard. So that part was quite easy. And again, as I said too, there's times where that's not tough, but just having that understanding was what is the alternative, and I knew what that alternative was and I've experienced it. Where you might have those other guys, like I mentioned before, never known anything different. They don't know what the alternative is because they never experienced it. So that experience was terrific and just laid good foundations for hard work ethic, and saw how hard my parents worked. And again, coming from a country town like that, everyone's fairly humble and laid back like that. But I look back now and know that was probably a real strong point to add to my career of why I played for so long and what I did in the game, because I was so grateful about what opportunity I had.
Yeah, I love it. Now, that 2007 year, and everyone knows what has transpired since then, but you're still humans. You still have to connect to the team. You still got to win, right? What was it about that team that built that connection that allowed you to have the performances that you did and ultimately win on grand final day?
I was actually listening to an interview with Roy Masters yesterday. He was talking about the culture of Melbourne Storm a little bit, and it was the foundations of the club with good people initially, with John Rebo and Chris Johns and Anderson down there.
Yeah.
They recruited good people. They had a couple of lean years there in the early 2000s. Then Craig came along, and Craig's very much about the characteristics of the person. The 06-07 period while I was there, and then what transpired after the next couple of years as well with that playing group. Isolation helps. Being down in Melbourne, you forge your own family. No one's from Melbourne. You literally do live in each other's pockets. The complex I had, it was Jake Webster and Greg Inglis was in my complex, and next door was Michael Crocker, and we'd be forever in each other's units and apartments. My wife now would cook meals for them, and we'd actually play cricket. We had a cricket team in the Melbourne competition down there in the off season, so we played cricket together. Whenever there was anything social, we'd always do it together. Concerts, like virtually you had 35 best mates and brothers that we all just spent so much time together. So that connection off the field was just as important as on it. You build that trust and that continuity, just knowing the person. And even to this day, I've got a number of ex-Melbourne Storm players here. We catch up quite regularly as well. It's like we're in the dressing sheds yesterday.
Yeah.
So you do have an added advantage down there, but the club, or essentially Craig, has a big ethos on the character of the person first. And you look around the competition, and there's some really talented people in the competition, but you wonder why Melbourne Storm never really pursued them. There's probably a real good reason for it. No matter how talented they are, you go, he probably wouldn't fit in down there.
Yeah. And it's rare that players leave the Storm and get better. I mean, there are exceptions, but mainly they fit their peak when they're there.
Yeah.
Were you a casualty of salary cap restrictions when you had to leave?
Yeah, a little bit. There was a little bit of that. There's a couple of good young guys coming through as well. There's a little bit of salary cap squeeze. I know where I was at my career. I was 28, 29. So how many good quality years I have. And Craig had actually played in the Newcastle competition and knew that probably that type of club would really suit me, or what that club was trying to do, that crowd would really embrace me, the style I played, the style of footy I played. So there's a little bit of that, a little bit of both. A good opportunity to a good contract where, again, coming in late, it was an opportunity to sort of set myself up a little bit as well. So there was a combination of a few things.
Yeah, and because of that work ethic and how Newcastle treats their fans who put in, like, did they really embrace you, the fans?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, there was a little bit of both. I've said this a few times, a few interviews. I was there under the Brian Smith regime after he flipped the place on its head.
Yeah,
he'd gotten rid of a lot of local talent, and a lot of guys that had been there for a long time. And there was myself and a few other guys that came in from outside, like virtually felt like we're hired guns.
Yeah,
it did take a little bit of time to be fully embraced by the town and the community. But once I started playing the way I sort of played, I emulated myself on Paul Harrigan's style of playing as well. So run hard, tackle hard. So that won the crowd over pretty quickly. But you were still one of the outsiders. Like, actually, the year before, Josh Perry had won a competition at Newcastle through and through. He was one of the casualties with Brian Smith. He went to Manly and had a great career down there. And here I come in from Melbourne Storm that they might not know too much about, taking virtually Josh Perry's position when they're own. So you sort of had to cop that as a little bit as well until you sort of won them over.
Yeah.
There's a few things there that probably weren't done right as well in Brian Smith's time there at Newcastle. It was fairly tumultuous with the senior playing group that was there. And So it wasn't overly enjoyable, the initial time in Newcastle, but once you started playing, you won the crowd over. It's very like Gladiator the movie. You win the crowd, you win your freedom, but yeah, you get them on board, you're all right. Yeah,
that's cool. You also got picked for the Blues and played there. Was that the pinnacle for you? Like, was that you at the heights?
Yeah, it was. It was again, it was probably a combination of 3 real hard years putting in. Sort of the last year at Canberra Raiders, opportunity to move to Melbourne Storm. Punctured with injuries a little bit first year at Melbourne Storm, and a little bit at Newcastle my first year as well. So it was just probably a real combination of the whole career, actually, that perseverance of playing 7 years of A grade before making NRL, being able to stick it out and stick it out and stick it out. Played well in the country origin game in 2007. Good showing in the grand final in the 07 season, then started the year well in 2008, and again, good game in country origin. So it's probably just a reward for all that hard work over that period of time.
Yeah, that's good. And do you feel like was it emotional? Like, do you feel like you gave that the best crack?
Yeah, yes and no. I think I probably wasn't my true Ben Cross at origin level. Probably just mixing with the playing group as well. Like I take a little bit of time to grow to people and connect with people. Just that's a bit standoffish and just take my time, where those type of teams you need to probably connect pretty quickly. And again, a lot of that side, that New South Wales team, had a lot of them been together for a long time. And I was a new one coming in. Brett White, it was his second year, and we were the new guard type of coming through off the back of our success at Melbourne Storm. And again, these are some of these players that I was watching play while I was in the NRL a few years ago as well. And I'm thinking, shit, do I really belong here now with these guys? Yeah, you do. So, but I was still sort of probably doubting myself a little bit. And not that I didn't play well or showcase, I probably wasn't my true Ben Cross, a real hard, aggressive, probably player could have. And again, it's origin. You can, a little bit anything goes a little bit of time. So I probably could have been and pushed the envelope a little bit more, I reckon.
Yeah. I know you probably look back, I could have done things differently, but what lessons have you taken from that you're able to pass on?
Yeah, probably like what I do relate to my players is just don't hold back. Like I said before, if you already don't have an NRL contract, if you don't put in, you're still going to get what you already got. And so just don't hold back. Really don't. Well, Wayne Bennett says, don't die with the music inside you in his book. And it's so true. Like, why are we worried about what others people think about us? The man in the mirror, when you look him in the eye, he's the only one that really judges by the end of the day. So if you're willing to put in, and you never know what heights you might get to and what you might achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a moment from your playing career that really sticks in your head as just being like, wow, how good's this?
Oh, there's a lot of great games and like success, like playing representative footy, got to go represent Australia and Papua New Guinea and pulling the green and gold on, albeit like Prime Minister's 13. But probably the game, like any grand final that I won, whether it's Queanbeyan Blues or Canberra Raiders and Melbourne Storm, like, they were highlights of my life, and that connection with that people. But it probably really sums up my whole career. My most enjoyable game I ever played in, and I tell the story quite a bit, and I told it talking to Melbourne Storm players one day. It was in 2007, we had all our origin players out, and we were playing New Zealand Warriors in New Zealand in 2007. And they had an absolute stacked team. I'm talking Ruben, Wiki, virtually the whole New Zealand forward pack. Stacey Jones, and we won 4-2. 4-2.
Wow.
When was the last time the score was like in the NRL? 4-2 we won. Jeremy Smith crashed over and dummy half in about the 69th minute, 67th minute. Warriors got a 2-point lead, I think, early in the first half. And like most of the game, it was 2-0. And we had a lot of young kids debuting that game. I was starting front row. Cooper Cronk was still playing. Matty Geyer. That just sort of summed up my career. That one game and just what Melbourne Storm was all about. That we just tackled our asses off. It was such a slugfest. Like, they just smacked us in the face. We smacked them in the face. As hard as it was still so enjoyable. That's probably just, if I can look back and you go, Crossy, you're crazy, man. What about the grand final? You won 34-8 or something like that, or another game that was a little bit easier. I said, but it's those ones that are really, really tough and really enjoyable. And that's probably a bit of a standout of a game that always sort of comes to.
Oh, goosebumps through that. I reckon there's probably a fair bit of the fact that when all the stars are there, well, then maybe you don't feel like you're contributing as much. But when you're one of the leaders, not the leader, because you're the front rower who's taking the team on your back, well, then that gives you so much more fulfillment, right? Knowing that you've played a huge part in getting everyone across the line.
Yeah, we had Sam Tagatisi, Sika Manu, Smith Samuel. I think they were all making their debut. Matty Rule, it was only his only game for the club that year. What was it? James Orbison was our dummy half. He was a back up to Smithy that year, and he'd only played a handful of games. So it was just backs against the wall, and guys like Jeremy Smith really stood up, and Coops and that. So, it always comes back to that game. It was tough as nails, but it was so enjoyable.
Yeah, so good. You mentioned at Origin, maybe you should have been pushing it closer to the edge. I was just flicking through your bio, and it said you got cited from your first game. So, for your first grade debut, were you determined to go in and not back down and just absolutely rip in, or was there something that happened that sort of set you off there?
No. Again, debuting, I just thought, well, I may as well play the way I play. I think I'm the only player in the NRL to be suspended after their first and second game. I had carryover points going into my debut. It was round 19, Dragons at Jubilee, Channel 9, Sunday afternoon footy. Like, it doesn't get any better. I think Mark Riddell was on the ground. I sort of fell across his head a little bit with my forearm, and they were sort of clamping down on that in the game. Like, he got up smiling, no one was hurt. So I copped a week for that. And then, of all things, my second one was a high shot in Adrian Morley. Now, I didn't know you could get suspended for having a high shot in Adrian Morley. I thought he was. I thought he was open slather, like, of all blokes that put a high shot on. He's on 1,000 in his life. So anyway, it was pretty funny at the time.
I'm just thinking now. You mentioned the high shots. There's a lot of talk around concussion and possible impacts of that. Did you get concussed many times, and have you sort of noticed anything that you might be a little bit suspicious about?
I don't know. I got a couple of good concussions when I was playing at Queensland Blues. I woke up on the sideline one day, coming off the line, trying to keep him in the in goal, split the chin. A good one over in the UK, and we're playing against St Helens, and I came in for a try-saving tackle, and then I was sitting in the grandstand next to my front row partner. I look at him. What the hell are you doing here? I said, why aren't we out there? He goes, Crossy, mate, you've been out for about 10 minutes. And I just sort of come to in the dress. That was probably the worst one. There's been a couple of concussions there. Look, spoke with a few older players who have gone away and done legend games and stuff like that. And I said, well, would you do any different? We all say no. You don't know the risk until you do it. Have there been any lingering effects? I probably think there has been some little things with just short-term memory, but long-term memory is really, really good. But I don't know, that probably comes with age as well. And again, I probably don't know until later on down the track. I've had a number of CAT scans and stuff like that. Never any black marks or any lesions in my brain. It's always been fully clear. So I don't know whether it's just coming down to old age. And obviously Simmons, with all these walks he's doing for dementia, he doesn't put it down to any head knocks, where he says, well, the largest group of people to lose their lives to dementia are middle-aged women. And he goes, I don't see them boxing, I see them playing rugby league throughout their life. So, I know it does affect some people, but is that contributed by how we played the game? Could possibly be. Like, we know that head trauma does lead to those things, but again, we're very early in that research as well. So, look, I want the game to be as safe as possible for everyone. Not that headgear sort of prevents concussions, but I'm a big advocate of kids wearing headgear early in their career. I know we had that in Newcastle, and then just teaching how to tackle really well is a big passion of mine. Teaching how to tackle well and safely I know there's talk about changing the kickoff where it becomes a 7 tackle if it's inside that 20, but how do you do that for a long in-play field kick and you're telling the fullback not to run the ball back hard? So, I know, you can't just knee-jerk reactions for things like that. It comes down to, and there'll be concussions no matter what.
Yeah. In life as well. Yeah, I heard Royce Simmons saying the same thing. And all of those different things happen across society. I don't think there's any.
No.
Well, I certainly haven't seen any data that says that there's. There's no specific data that's pointing the finger, but clearly there are impacts. And I mean, I don't know if you've done any look at some of the study on how sometimes it's the trauma, the mental trauma of the incident that keeps things stuck in the body as well. But there's certainly some things that we haven't tapped into there that I know that will be able to be beneficial as well. So it'll be interesting to watch that space. All right. So how do you transition? You mentioned you always sort of aspired to coach.
Yeah.
How did you then transition from playing? Let me go here first. You went from Newcastle to England, is that right?
Yeah.
So did you reach a point where you're like, oh, I'm cooked, I need to get out, or was it sort of forced upon you?
I always said I'd play to the day when my body just virtually collapsed on the field and told me this is a full stop.
Yeah.
And a little bit of self-premonition. That's exactly what happened. Literally, I had a partial tear in my ACL halfway through 2013. The doctor said, look, you can self-repair this. You could maybe play another 3 or 4 years, or it might go on your first game back. It's just unknown. Players that played with no ACLs got the leg nice and strong and rehabbed it. A couple of little setbacks and different injuries. And then the second last game of the season, I actually, before that, decided to retire at the end of that year. That was going to be my last year. But then we still had a couple of games to go, and I got back for the second last game of the year. So I said, okay, I've got 2 games to go, and virtually played 3/4 of the game, and then came out with a little bit of line speed as the opposition were coming off the try line, and stepped off my right leg. And literally, like I said, I'd keep on playing until my body just collapsed in the heap. I collapsed on the heap on the ground because the knee just gave way. And then that was the full stop to the career, and walked off with a ruptured ACL, and that was it. Yeah.
Painful?
Then initially it just sort of happens. Then they wanted to put me on a stretcher and carry me off. I said, no, there's not a chance. I'm walking off. It's only an ACL. Sorry, it's not only an ACL, but everything was intact. I could walk.
Yeah.
You
want your last moment.
Yeah.
You want your last moment to be carried off.
No, and again, like probably moving back to Australia after that, I probably would have done something stupid, like going back and playing park footy or New South Wales Cup footy. Like I probably would have been playing New South Wales Cup footy, coaching at the Knights there in 2014. Rick Stone sort of said if you had been fit, you probably would have been playing. So I probably would have done something stupid like that, like a lot of players do, go and play park footy after they finish their professional career. So, I probably was never going to be a big fan of doing that. Now we're just playing a few Legends of Leeds games once a year because you need a whole year for a pre-season. It takes about 6 months to do a pre-season for it, and it takes the other 6 months to recover from it. Yeah. So you're forever in preparation mode, or you're forever in recovery mode.
So good. So you go. So you finish up there. You come home. Like, was it straight into coaching? Like,
I was coaching in England while I was playing. So for 2 years while I was living in Wigan, I was coaching a local team called Wigan St Pat's over there that's produced a number of Super League quality players. That was great, like grassroots footy over in England and mixing with the kids there, and again gave me a distraction from while I was being a professional footy player. And it was a great club and had great players, and so that was a bit of a lead into coaching. And if we started off coaching kids, that was good. And then obviously reached out to Rick Stone, moving back to Newcastle. He'd been dethroned by Wayne Bennett and still within the club, and gone back to New South Wales Cup coaching and playing under Rick. And he said, yeah, no problem, just come in and be my assistant coach at New South Wales Cup level with Georgie Nadira, my old dummy half partner. And we coached we coached New South Wales Cup together for a couple of years there, and grand final in 2014, lost to Penrith, and not surprisingly, with a lot of those players that are actually there playing now.
Yeah.
And then we beat Wyong Roos in 2015, New South Wales Cup, with Matty Lantry as the head coach. So, yeah, it was a good introduction to coaching. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw you light up there when you were talking about that gig in Wigan. Like,
Yeah.
what is it about coaching young people? Because I recognise that look, because I get the same thing. What is it that you get out of
just
that?
seeing them grow, like just little tidbits, like they're doing something that they think's working. You just give them a little bit of direction to change things, and all of a sudden just change the whole dynamics of their footy, whether they're just the way they're tackling or the way they're passing, and something becomes more efficient and easier for them. They enjoy the game more. So it's like those fundamental skills. You get those right. Funnily enough, the kids enjoy the game a lot better as well. Where if it's hard to tackle, if it's hard to pass properly, if you can master those skills, well, then the game becomes so much more enjoyable, which was great working with those kids.
Yeah, and it's not just change their footy. Like if you can give them the confidence to suddenly see they can improve, that changes their whole life, right?
Yeah, well, we had Tom Davies. He's gone on to play for Wigan in England and Catalan Dragons, now Hull KR. There was another kid there, Liam Marshall. He's played international and for Wigan as well. They were in the two teams that we coached, and a couple other Wigan kids that have gone through. So I'm sitting here in Australia watching these kids from the Super League that I'd coached, which is unreal.
Yeah. Can I just backpedal to playing days for one sec? You've worked under some of the best coaches that we've had. Was there one life skill that you got taught from one of them that's really stuck with you?
Oh, probably no surprise, Craig Bellamy with hard work. Yeah, and I tell my kids every day, you never get let down by hard work. And my players that I've coached with, I know at Ipswich Jets, they probably got sick and tired of me hearing it, said you never get let down by hard work in whatever you do. It'll never let you down. How you apply that and how you use it, that's on you. But work ethic's massive. You can't achieve anything without hard work. And Craig's, all coaches were, but probably more so around Craig, was he actually really rewarded it. He walked the talk, and he did it as well. Like, we'd get to training there, and he's running around the park, he's in the gym, so he's setting the standard for himself, very similar to what Wayne Bennett did with Broncos early on, and you want to be the example as well. So, when I was at Broncos there training, I'd get into the wrestle sessions with the guys and that sort of stuff as well. Sometimes to the detriment of them, sometimes to the detriment of me, but you learn your lessons. But yeah, you still think you can sort of mix it with them when you're in your 40s. But hard work will never let you down, I think, and that was probably one of the biggest attributes from Craig. That if you did that, though, you got rewarded for it as well.
Yeah, love it. What are your aspirations now in coaching?
It's still the pinnacle to become an NRL head coach. And I know that path's not linear. Sort of everything you're going through now is to put you on a path of where you want to be. So, and my path's always been a little bit different with other people, and probably sometimes I've got to stop reflecting and sort of comparing myself to them, where I'm looking at other coaches that might be in the game and seeing where they're sat. But then I remember they also didn't have an NRL career for 11 years as well.
Yeah.
And I've only been really coaching for 11 years. And within that time now, I've been twice ahead of football, successful Origin coach, won premierships at grassroots level with Newcastle, New South Wales Cup. So I've still achieved a lot in 11 years. So just again, put it in perspective. You're only going to get better every year you're coaching if you're getting better every year. So there's what I mean by, you can coach for 20 years, but if you're not growing and learning every year, really you've only got 20 times that 1 year. But if you're coaching every year and trying to find ways to get better and learn from other sports and other people, well, then you're going to get better. You're going to grow as a coach. So that's just what I'm trying to do every year as well. So back now coaching with Queensland Cup with the East Tigers under Matt Church that I worked with before, and looking after Karina Tigers as head of football there. So you get to sort of impart and deliver a holistic program in your model.
I love it. It sounds like you need to get the Eminem song back on, mate, and that focus. You said before, like when you were trying to take yourself from being a park footballer to a professional footballer, you said you knew what you wanted to do and where you wanted to go, and it sounds like you got that same aspiration for the coaching as well. Yeah. Fantastic. What about the game of rugby league? Like, what would you say that the impact that's had for you in your life? Like, is there something that you would pin it down to, or is it just too many benefits to sort of rattle off?
Oh, we always use the analogy like what sport can teach you for life lessons as well. So like teamwork, resilience, gratitude, hard work ethic. Like they're all those transferable skills. And it's just then sort of helping those kids understand those transferable skills as well. But for me personally, rugby league's given me everything: life experiences. Met my wife through rugby league. She was working at Canberra Raiders at the time. Children, kids, friends, and family. But again, you don't get handed that on a plate either. Like this game, as I said before, the beauty that I love about rugby league is that you get shone between those white lines. Whether you've either done the work or you haven't done the work, gets so highlighted between those white lines. Yeah. If you're willing to put in the work, you're willing to put in the effort, you're willing to suffer, you're willing to sacrifice, it really gets highlighted between those white lines. If you're not willing to put all that work in, well, then it gets really shone up pretty quickly as well. So it's not for the faint-hearted. It's not meant to be. There's different levels of rugby league for everyone, but those ones that aspire to reach the top, there's a price you've got to pay, and sometimes that price of entry is quite high. And then if you want to stay there, the entrance price is even higher. But what it can teach you for life is terrific life lessons, but what it can provide you as well. And I'm not talking about financial resources. Like that's just secondary sometimes. That is great. What can afford you there, but the friends you make and the people you connect with probably last a lot longer than the financial rewards, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You already mentioned that a couple of times.
Yeah,
the connections, and to me, that's like one of, if not the greatest thing that sport gives you, is lifelong friendships that you take forever. What just on that forging connections, how do you incorporate that into your coaching? Because you even at that club level, you're getting people coming from all different walks of life. How do you bring them together?
Yeah, we like to use shared stories and just questioning and getting people to give. Probably just a reflection of themselves at times. We do interviews, little one-on-one questions, group questions. Shared stories is probably the biggest thing as well. Like the more you can get people talking about their past and their history, again, there are things you can use. There's different models you can use. That Triple H, where you use a highlight, a hero, and a hardship. And some people go really deep, and some people go a little bit shallower, just on how they feel their vulnerability, and that's not right or wrong. But it's just virtually having those micro connections as well, but being really genuine in your questions. Like it's not just asking, how's your wife and kids, and then getting straight, how's your wife and kids? By the way, that tackle on the weekend. Listen and reflect on what they're saying as well. Like, and sometimes we're really noticing people as about what they're not saying is probably saying even more so as well, just their body language and being aware of that. And it's just, again, spending time with each other. Meals are a big one. Eating together and not focusing on the sport as well, in different environment, going outside the environment of just the footy field as well, to see what they're really like as people.
Love that. And you kind of mentioned there picking up on things that you don't see, that like that intuitive side of things. Like, do you see that's something that you've always had the ability to do, is to pick up things that other people don't?
Yeah, I think about it pretty good. My gut feel is always steer me in the right direction, and my gut reaction about people has always been pretty spot on. And again, it just comes with time as well. So like you got to be observant to your observations as well, as funny as that sound. You can't just think of this. No, he's just not putting in today. But then when you dig a little bit deeper, actually, he's probably just had a fight with his girlfriend. He's just worked a 12-hour shift. Yep. That's probably why he's lagging on his conditioning, because his mind's not right here. And just really asking genuine questions to your players and really listening to the answers, and sometimes listening to what they're not saying as well is as important as listening to what they are saying. And again, that just comes back to experience as well. Like guys like Craig Bellamy and Wayne Bennett are masters at it, pure because of the time they've had in the saddle.
Yeah.
They're both fairly old men now. Craig, he's 67 or something like that. But you just pick that up along the way. But if you're intentional about those behaviours and you really make an intentional focus about your coaching, rather than the X's and O's and tactics and strategies and all that sort of stuff, well, then I think you're putting yourself in a good place as well, because we're dealing with people. We're not dealing with football players and computer games and that sort of stuff. We're not joystick computer game coaches and that sort of stuff. We're dealing with people, and if you're not willing to pay attention to them, well, then they're not going to pay attention to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I love what you said there about the picking up. Well, maybe they've had something going on, like a fight with a partner or something like that. Like, I just think that's just true for all areas of life as well, as how many times are people reacting in a certain way, and we go off the reaction instead of doing what you just said there, which is, okay, let's just have a look here, observe a little bit better, and think about what might be going on for them. So I love that. Have you had a moment or moments where you've been in the zone where, like, when you were playing or even coaching, where it's just like you're sort of seeing moves ahead and everything was just happened effortlessly?
Yeah, there was periods of time in my career where that sort of happened. So once I sort of early days at Canberra, still learning how to become, like, so that's where probably when I was at the time at the Brisbane Broncos, a lot of those kids were coming through and all debuting at the same time, and the Broncos were getting ripped apart. All those kids debuted at the same time, like Paddy Carrier, Herbie Farnworth, all those kids coming through. Yes, you know how to play rugby league, but you don't know how to play NRL yet. Like, you got to learn how to play NRL first. So those first 3 years of my career at Canberra was learning how to play NRL, and then moving to Melbourne probably learnt more how to be a high level rugby league player at that level. So that takes time in itself as well, where us as a society and the critics of the game and give a kid a hard time after his 5th or 6th or 7th game, or even his 27th game or whatever. It probably takes a good, I know Trent Robertson talks a fair bit about it. The faster you can get your games, your players to 50 games, they know now, I sort of use it, and he knows how to put his boots on, knows what his job and his role, fairly comfortable. And that does take time. It's like within any job you're in, and you're expecting the kid who's 18, 19, 20-year-old still not having that maturity level to be a out and outstanding performer on a weekly basis at the highest level of rugby league in the world against the best players in the world. They're as equally as talented as you and equally working as hard. You've got to forgive these players sometimes, or they've just paid a lot of money. They're a full-time footy player. Yeah, I know, but they're still getting experience in their boots. And you can't get experience if you're not in your boots. It doesn't matter how much training you do and all that stuff. It's all that time on grass, time in the games that gets you that experience about what to do. So that's what I noticed a lot about those kids at Broncos at that time. And then they started to come through it, and you can see the results they started to have the year before. They dropped off the perch a little bit this year. But, from a personal career as well, it just takes time and effort to put in to gain that. But then you've also got to be intentional about your behaviours within it as well. Like I was talking before about being empathetic to your players as a coach, but still being empathetic but still not holding them accountable isn't going to help them either. So there still needs that level of accountability. And players need to realise too, there's a self-accountability on yourself as well you've got to put on. That it's not everyone else's fault that you had a bad game. It's not someone else's fault that you had a bad game because you're stuck in traffic or stress at home. Like, you've still got agency over that to take control of your behaviours, and you can control that. And again, that takes time to learn as well. But us as coaches, we can help teach that. I know wellbeing officers are probably better at teaching that these days as well. So they're the little things you learn along the way as well that I've noticed in the game starting to creep in.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that you've gone to the extra length, even as a coach, to do the wellbeing training as well. I always wonder, because I've had a few conversations in and around the game, and one of the things that I sort of noticed was that the people that get the least support are the wellbeing people, and although that seems to be changing, and also the coaches. So, like, where does the support come for the coaches who are doing all the supporting of everyone else?
Oh, exactly right. You get empathy fatigue, and you just get fatigued as a coach being the first point of contact for everything. I know there needs to be a health benefit to support those head coaches as well. I know there was talk of being a coach association to have that support network. And look, I noticed there Ivan Cleary came out in an interview and said that he suffered from a bit of depression or just anxiety, performance anxiety and performance depression, which was great for him to example of that. But for his perspective and the game's perspective, everyone else's perspective, after winning 4 premierships, he can say that, and that's terrific. I would have hated to have seen what the perception of him would have been if he had have came out and spoken about that his first year in Penrith when they almost won the wooden spoon.
Yeah, spot on.
Would they have still got around him, supported him? Because if they had have maybe seen, oh, that's just a too hard basket, we might have to move on from him. Penrith don't have that success because I know he's the leader of a lot of that success and what he's delivered there at the club as well. So he was safe to say that he was suffering from these struggles at times and hard to get out of bed at times after winning 4 premierships. Oh, that's great to be able to do that in spite of those issues. I just hope organisations and society still supports that same individual if he had came out and said that in that transition between his West Tigers and that Panthers role. Yeah, would they have? I don't know until someone does come out and do it.
Oh, mate, you've nailed that. Like, it's celebrated now because he's a winner.
Yeah.
But if he wasn't, then people might be saying, "Oh, he's weak. He's this," which is just going to pile more on the stigma we're trying to remove.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, so good, mate. I can tell that you are good at telling a story and of sharing your wisdom. I'm sure those people that you coach are getting so much out of what you do. I know that the listeners from this will have taken a heap of value as well. Is there anything else that you just want to share with the listeners just around footy, around life that they can take forward that they're going to help them to reach their top like you've done in so many different areas?
It's things that I coached myself around just as much. That I look upon myself first and foremost, and self-accountability first and foremost. And I know I need to be a better husband, a better father, a better coach all the time, and always sort of trying to pursue ways to becoming better, essentially. And I think as a player, when I was doing that, whenever that becomes a priority that stops, it's probably time to give it away.
Yeah,
and that's probably the same with my coaching career as well. When trying to find ways to become better at what I'm trying to become, because I don't think we ever achieve our optimum level. Like, you're always in pursuit of becoming better. Whenever that stops becoming a priority, I'll stop coaching. That if I'm not trying to become a better coach for my players, because the better coach I can be, the better players will be. The better husband, the better father I can be, the better environment great for my children and wife as well. So that's always an ongoing process. So just probably that self-accountability and looking that person in the mirror, in the eye, and going, are you doing everything you can all the time to be the best of yourself? And once that stops becoming a priority, if that's coaching for me, well then it might be, okay, Ben, your players aren't going to get the best out of you if you're only doing it for financial rewards or self-satisfaction because of achievement. Well, then you're not really pursuing it for the right reasons. So that's probably something that the advice I give myself that probably some people can take away with.
Oh, spot on. I was even thinking about it myself as you were talking, going, it's something that when things are going well, you can sometimes lose sight of.
Yeah.
So I might have to get back into doing some more learning, I think. But yeah, that's great advice. It's once you stop trying to get better at anything, and including life, then you're going to quickly slip backwards and not be for the right reasons. So good. Ben, thank you so much, mate. I appreciate the time that you've invested here in this and your wisdom that you've shared.
No, pleasure. It's been terrific. Pleasure chatting. Thank you.
Cheers,
mate.
What a great chat. I always love learning from people who have performed at the highest level. the great reminder for me, for my game plan, is you got to continue to get better at getting better, particularly when things are going well. So a good reminder for me. For you to add to your game plan, absolutely that lesson, but also the importance of having accountability and having someone there to pull you into line or encourage you or push you in the right direction. If this is something you need, I'll just remind you of my accountability group that I have. We catch up once a week. It's straight to the point. What do you need to do this next week? And then we review it the next week to make sure that you've done what it is that you need to do. So if you're someone that, like me, who loves that accountability like you would get in a sporting environment, then shoot me an email. We can talk. You've taken the time to listen to this whole episode. Now it's time to take action. Commit to one thing you've learned today and make it happen. And to avoid any obstructions, join the Sport is Life movement by clicking on the link in the show notes.